is now investigating, it says, reports that some coronavirus patients are testing positive for a second time after initially testing negative for the disease. This comes as South Korean officials have identified 91 patients thought to be cleared of COVID-19, who then tested positive again. South Korea's CDC director says the virus may have been, quote, reactivated rather than the patients being reinfected. Dr. Nesheiwat, I want to catch the fine detail that this isn't someone tested negative and then tested positive because they were taking multiple tests. These are people who actually had COVID-19 and were told they were cleared because they first tested negative after having it and then testing positive. Those are two different situations.
Sure. So there could be several different things going on here. I've actually had a couple patients that say they got better and then they got worse again, but it was all within the same time period of about a month. But it could be that it was a false negative. Maybe when whoever was conducting the nasal swab, for example, they didn't get enough specimen. So you're going to get a false negative. That's why it's so important. When I swab a patient's nose, I tell them, relax. I've got to get a good amount of specimen on the swab. Otherwise, we're going to get a false negative. That's one thing. The other thing is, sadly, and I hope that this isn't the case, we still need more research, is yes, it could reactivate or just never really exited the body in the first place. You know, there are some diseases and viruses, for example, shingles, which is like a herpes type of virus. Some patients have it more than once, even though technically you're only supposed to have it one time and your body develops antibodies to it. And then, you know, finally, and lastly, I hope this isn't the case, but could it be another strain that's emerging? So different variables. The good thing is I'm not seeing this in a lot of my patients. The test that came out of South Korea only counted about 91 patients. So different reasons to account for this, but it's not a major issue with a lot of the patients that I'm seeing right now. But if a patient does seem to have symptoms again, we start them back from day one, 14-day quarantine again because of the fear of spreading it.
Oh. Well, I got two, I hope this isn't the case from you, on two different things there. So it sounds like we just need more testing, which is something, by the way, that we're told is happening. Yet here on the East Coast, doctor after doctor like yourself don't have the swabs, don't have different materials to do the testing.
Well, we do have them, but we're limited. And so we're limited and we can only test the patients who are ill, who show the signs and symptoms, those who have chronic comorbidities that are higher risk of death, you know, those with like hypertension, heart disease, lung disease, kidney disease, asthma. So we reserve the test for those who really need it and are most vulnerable. But we are getting more tests in. It's just we're using them as quickly as they're coming in. The antibody test will certainly be a huge help and I believe is more accurate than the swabs. That's something that we look for, what we call specificity, sensitivity of a test to know how accurate it is. Yeah. So we're coming along. It's just we need it faster.
All right, let's go around the horn here if we can. That's where Melissa, we're just going to hit the doctor.
Yeah, that's where my question would come in on the antibodies. If you're tested and you have the antibodies, Dr. Nesheiwat, would that mean that, number one, you can't contaminate other people any longer? I mean, can you infect other people if you're tested and you have the antibodies? And can you get it again if you have the antibodies in your system? Or is it a threshold that they have to hit a certain level? How does that work?
Sure, that's a great question. We're still learning more about these answers to these questions. I hope that this will be a one-off, meaning, for example, if you've had mono, if you've had measles, if you've had chickenpox, you have it once in your life and that's it. Your body develops lifelong immunity. We don't know for sure yet. It's too early to tell, but we all of us as medical providers and scientists, we hope and pray that this is a one-time illness. Your body develops antibodies and then you're done. Now, usually, yes, if you develop antibodies and you're asymptomatic, you shouldn't be able to pass it to other people. But if you're coughing and sneezing and you're running a fever, yeah, it's a possibility. So we have to be careful. And we're still learning, though, more about this virus and antibody immune system response.
All right. Marie Harf, a question for the doctor.
Doctor, you mentioned how time will tell, and we will only learn some of these facts as we get more testing, as more people develop antibodies. This, of course, is directly related to the question of when we can reopen the economy. Until we have some of these answers, that decision is much harder. Yeah. What's the time frame here that you would have people look to for some of these more clarity on some of these tests?
Realistically, I think looking at it in the next few weeks, I'm hoping with the influx of more supplies of antibody testing to know if you've had it in the past or you have it now, in addition to the nasal swabs. I think maybe we can look at May, but I think a couple weeks is too soon. But we really just have to take precautions and continue to galvanize Americans to adhere to the guidelines until we have more data, until we see the numbers trending downward, because the last thing we want to do is open up too early and then have a resurgence and spikes and peaks in cases, and we don't want that to happen. That's one of my biggest fears, actually, Marie.
Wow. Guy, jump in there.
Yeah, Doctor, back to this question about so-called reactivations and some of those concerns out of South Korea. A top virologist at Columbia University tweeted this earlier today, quote, "There is no data supporting that these quote-unquote reactivations are much more than unreliable test results and or fluctuating viral RNA." That goes a little bit to what you just said a moment ago. Do you agree with that assessment?
Yes, I do. Again, a lot of it has to do with, human error. If we're not getting enough specimen on the swab, that's why you tested negative. And then later, a week or two later, they swabbed you. A different person did that swab and you tested positive. So it's not surprising to me. We still have to make sure that we treat the patient and not a test. If the patient is symptomatic, take precautions, 14-day quarantine to prevent the spread.
Wow, those are wise words. Treat the patient, not the test. Dr. Nesheiwat, it's always great to have you and your perspective on. Okay, everybody sit tight. Republicans with $1 million ad blitz touting President Trump's response to the pandemic, as Democrats are launching their own ads attacking him on the same issue. How the COVID-19 is shaping the 2020 campaign next.
To New Jersey and the phenomena there, the high end, the low end. Remember about the deductibility of how much in terms of taxes you could write off, et cetera, et cetera. So this might be all coming into the mix. But again, the perspective is everything, and a comeback, as Barbara pointed out, from the virus and just a feeling that we're over the worst of it could change a lot of minds. We shall see. The Dow down about 4 to 39 points. More after this.